Today is World Press Freedom Day, a day that serves to remind people of the dangers faced by journalists around the world. The day also seeks to defend media from attacks on their independence and to pay tribute to journalists who have lost their lives in the exercise of their profession. Earlier, Newsroom spoke to Sanef chairperson Mahlatse Mahlase on the importance of this day.
We have talked about the spike in attacks on journalists, and these attacks not only coming from politicians like we saw in Parliament in recent months with the EFF's Deputy President Floyd Shivambu attacking a journalist within the parliamentary precinct, but we've also seen journalists being attacked by members of community, especially during protests, violent protests. I mean, just last week, I think it was, when SABC crew, their equipment was actually damaged because community members do not like the fact that media is doing their job, which is to expose them when there's looting of shops like we've seen in places like the Northwest. So we are quite concerned that there is this increasing attacks on journalists, especially coming from community members. And we would like to continue the word to say that ordinary people in South Africa must see media freedom as their rights. It is not just about the journalists being able to do their work, but what we're doing on their behalf, because our work is in the public interest and the Constitution protects their right to know, and it is the media that brings them that right to know.
Definitely, specifically in that case in point of that journalist, Adrian de Kock, I think it was, that was allegedly assaulted. How do we go forward in protecting our journalists and ensuring that, essentially their rights are not trampled on going forward?
One of the big things that we have done in Sanef in the past 2 years, because of the spike in attacks on journalists, is to push for journalists to actually lay charges with the police, because we need to come to a point where those that attack journalists are actually prosecuted. But unfortunately, we haven't seen these cases going far. This is despite the fact that some of these incidents are filmed and the videos are widely circulated, but we have not seen police actually follow up. And that is the conversation we continue to have with those in authority, to say that when journalists do come forward to lay complaints, we need to see them investigated and we need to see them ending up in the courts. I mean, one of the things that you remember last year, we spent a lot of money taking the BLF, the Black First Land First, to court when they were going to journalists' homes and they were arresting them and attacking them. And we had to go to court to say that, we are a country that must respect the rule of law and people must abide by the rule of law. And we got that court order that forced the BLF to actually abide by the rule of law. And we've seen a decline in their attempts to attack journalists and harass journalists. And we're hoping that this is part of something that then spreads not just to the BLF, but everybody else in society sees the value of journalism in terms of strengthening our democracy.
Definitely. With that being said, let's talk about the threats that we're currently seeing to press freedom, specifically with the notion that we continuously starting to see a trend in fake news. Yep. And we do know, social media somewhat does play a big part in that, in spreading news very, very quickly without necessarily maybe first confirming and finding all facts first.
It is quite a serious one, and we're quite concerned. We've launched quite a massive campaign against fake news in the past year as well, because we're noticing that, those that are only interested in making money, because we have to also accept that there are those that are making money. We're not even calling it fake news, but for misinformation campaign that they actually spread, because every time you and I click, because there is a disturbing headline that says, for example, Archbishop Desmond Tutu has passed on, you will click because of who Archbishop Desmond Tutu is. And that is how they are making money, because they get the clicks and then the ad revenue actually goes to them. And what we are saying to social media users is that please be vigilant. One of the things we need them to do is double check the websites, because we've also seen quite popular news websites, fake ones being created that look very similar to, for example, SABC News. There will be a 1 added and you would look at the colors and assume that this is SABC News. But when you look closely, you see the 1 somewhere there and you can see that this is not the right website. So we are asking social media users to really be careful, and also do not spread it. Because once you spread it and share it amongst your friends on Facebook or even on Twitter, then you've got more and more people reading from that news. And it is quite disgusting that, the life of somebody as revered as Desmond Tutu would be used for such a cheap gimmick and get us also worried. Another tip that we're giving to social media users is that if none of the big broadcasters or none of the big news organizations are reporting on a particular thing, that is also another sign that says this is possibly fake news. And we have to be quite worried about it, because it's not only just about passing on false information about somebody has passed away. We've seen what has happened in America and how the platform has been used to influence political outcomes in the elections there recently. So we need to continue to be vigilant as South Africans, and also, I mean, to get our readers to also, take a second take, especially on big news that nobody else is reporting on.
Business news up next. Stay with us.